Hi. Today we're going to be trying something never before attempted on my channel, and that is an alteration. To be more specific, a thrifted flip, very much inspired by Best Dressed. In fact, I pretty much followed one of her alterations, so I will link her video down below. Garment workers, I have the utmost of respect for. I mean, we all know they should be paid a lot more for their time and their skill. Obviously you get faster as you practice, and this is pretty much the first thing I've ever made. I've only ever done like a hand stitched. I've made bags before, tote bags, and I've only ever really hand stitched. So this is my first proper time using a sewing machine, so go easy on me. But to be a garment worker and to not be paid properly for your work and your skill and your I'm sure it's a very fast turnaround. I'm sure it's like bash, 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 make as many garments as you can in an hour. I cannot recommend more that if you do buy a lot of fast fashion, please try and make a piece that you would like to wear, and see how much work goes into it and how much skill really goes into making a piece that you'd want to wear. Try and make something that is actually might fit in with one of the trends that you might follow, and just see how much effort there is that goes into it, and how much people should be paid for their skills and expertise and time. And I'll leave some resources down below if you want to learn more about that, but I'm going to stop talking your ear off and we're going to get straight on into the transformation with the before shot. So this is the skirt that I got, and I got this for Christmas from my mum. She got this secondhand, which is always greatly appreciated, but as you can see, it was way too big on the waist, and also just the style of the skirt. It's very 1950s, and even though I think that's very cool, it's just not really something I would wear, and I'm trying to only have things in my wardrobe that I would definitely wear. As you can see, it needs a good couple of inches off the waist. Try and keep the pockets but shorten it, so that means paying attention and not snipping through a pocket. So we'll see if I can achieve this as we progress. So I clipped the waistband as to where I think it needs to be taken into, and then I went for a very brave snip through the fabric just to mark where I wanted to cut the skirt to. I then took the skirt off. I whipped out my tape measure and I measured the skirt, making sure to be very, very careful to leave space for a hem at the bottom, so a couple of inches extra so that I could hem the skirt. And Ashley from Best Dressed actually gave the top tip that you should really leave a bit of extra fabric for the bum side, the back bum, not the front bum. I'm gonna drop the front bum and back bum from this video, hopefully. Let's just call it the front and back. So for the back of the skirt, you should leave a couple more inches, because obviously the shape of your booty might use a little bit of fabric, but I actually ended up cutting this off anyway, because the material of this skirt is very stiff. It's almost like, is it jacquard? Is that what it's called? Where it's kind of like, it holds its shape pretty well. It's quite thick, and it's almost like curtain material, if that makes sense. So that was kind of a learning curve. I've never used this fabric before. I've never used any fabric before. So I cut off that extra few inches from the back of the skirt, and then I went ahead and pinned to sew a hem. I pinned a hem for the lining as well, and then I ironed both hems so they're just nice and flat to go through the sewing machine, and I sewed them shut. I'd say a real tip if you are making something for yourself is to keep trying it on. Don't just go off measurements, keep trying it on, because I tried it on and I realized it was a really good length. However, I do not want it to sit on my hip. I want it to sit on my waist. I measured with my tape measure along the waistband, and I realized that I needed to take off 2 inches from the skirt. So I found this tutorial, which I'll leave down below, as kind of like a hack on how to take in the waistband of a skirt, which I'll come on to in a second. But basically I was taking off 1 inch in a triangle shape from each side of the skirt. Spoiler alert, this is where our story takes a little bit of a turn. In every story there's always a little bit of a diversion from the plot line where things start to go wrong. Sometimes it's multiple things on top of one another, and this was definitely one of those times. Yeah. She's jammed, she's jammed. She's jammed, she's jammed, she's jammed. What's happened? What's happened? Oh, I broke the needle. Luckily, in my arsenal, I had a spare sewing machine needle, so I whipped that out and replaced it. And then I switched to just doing this by hand, because I realized this fabric is so thick that my little old sewing machine probably cannot cope with it. It was a little bit laboursome, going backwards and forwards. I was just really conscious that obviously doing it by hand, it might be a little bit looser, so I tried to go over the same stitches a couple of times. I snipped off the excess thread, and this is what the two seams looked like when I was done. Okay, so sewing machine 1. It's the day after, and I took in the skirt at the top, doing this nifty little trick, this sort of triangular trick.
I just ruined it, didn't I?
Oh, no, it's fine, don't worry, you carry on. Doing this triangular trick. Basically what you do is you measure how much you want to take off on the waistband. I did it wrong, by the way. You take off a quarter of it from each side. So you fold it in half. So say I wanted to take off 2 inches, the overall waistband. Where I fudged up is I took off 1 inch, but obviously because I had folded it in half to make this triangle shape on the waistband, 1 + 1 = 2. So I'd actually taken off 4 inches by the time I finished last night. So I then had to unstitch the other triangle from the other side. So now it's just taken in from one side and there's no triangle on the other side of the waistband. All very fascinating. But because it's in a triangle shape, it kind of makes the skirt, which is already pretty puffy, quite wide. It's not the most flattering ever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off, try and do this cleverly because this is a line where a pocket is. I'm going to try and just take off a little bit from this seam here. I'm not explaining this very well at all, but hopefully I'm not going to eat into the pocket too much. I'm not going to sew up the pocket. Yeah, let's see if this works. With the mini skirt pretty much done, I decided to make a little matching top out of the bottom of the skirt. This is the same as what Ashley did. There was some fabric left over from the bottom of the maxi skirt and I decided to use that to make a cute little reformation style top, that kind of like 90s style square neck kind of thing. I think it's very sweet, very flattering. So I took a little mini top that I had already and I tried to use that to give me the approximate sizes for this little wrap top. It's going to follow a very similar kind of style, but it's going to be a square neck as opposed to a sweetheart neckline. A bit less booby, let's say, a little bit more conservative with a small C. So I laid it out on the fabric and I was trying very hard to use as many hems or like as many seams as I could that are already on the top. So I used one seam as the edge of the top, lined it up and then just cut along the bottom of the edges of where the top part, the torso part of the top sits. I'm basically trying to make a tube piece of material here. So I then pinned along the bottom of the top to add a hem and I sewed that with my sewing machine. I tried the piece of fabric on to see where it would sit and I realised I done fudged up again. Is it me or does this look way too small? I have a feeling this is way too small. This is way too small. What? How have I done that wrong? I don't know how this happened. To this day, I don't know how it happened. My measuring skills, they're not great. I would never claim they were great. I think it's because this has got no stretch to it. Why have I picked the most difficult fabric to work with? Okay, fine. Fine. We're gonna have to cut this again. I can use this for the straps actually, because I have already hemmed it, so I can use it for the straps. Luckily, I had enough fabric to do this all over again, and I basically repeated the same process, except I used my actual measurements as opposed to my non-measurements. Once I'd corrected my little fudge up, I then fished out of my mum's sewing kit some elastic. So I took a piece of elastic around the top of my boob area and I cut that. And I also took a piece of elastic around the bottom of my boob area. So above the boob, below the boob, where I wanted the top to kind of come in and be a little bit tighter. So I sewed that along. I sewed the piece of elastic along the stretch, the length of that tubular piece of top that's not yet become a tube. It's still just a long piece of fabric. And I stretched the elastic as I went along, so that once I released the tension on the elastic, it then ruched up into kind of like a roughly effect top. And once I'd done the top piece of elastic, I just double checked that the under boob piece of elastic still fit okay. The idea behind this is that it would kind of flow out in a nice kind of like peplum shape. However, because of the stiffness of the fabric, I feel like the top was a little bit too short. The fact that I was using a top to model this top on that was a completely different fabric, probably should have twigged in my brain that it wouldn't look exactly the same. And it's a completely different shape, completely different flow of fabric. The peplum thing kind of works. Like if I was wearing this with some jeans, it might work. Obviously this needs to be sewed down, but I do feel like it's a bit much because this is kind of like a skater skirt and I don't really want the top piece to fan out that much like that. So I'm going to do what Ashley did as well and put a third piece of elastic along the bottom. I'm going to just have to try and make it look even. I feel like it looks okay, I could make it work, but I quite want it to kind of cinch in at the bottom as well. And then once I've done that, I can start adding the straps, which I will cut from the original piece, this piece that I fudged up. Waste not, want not. So out of that piece of fabric that was left over from when I done fudged up for about the third time, I cut some straps, and these are quite thick straps. I wanted a nice sort of square neck, quite thick chunky strap sort of shape. Just gonna chop this in two. Some squizzers. No, I didn't. That's fine. One like that. Yeah. I went through multiple levels of thinking I'd messed up and actually messing up in this project. It's all part of the process, like I say. I then hemmed the straps, so none, I don't know if hemming is the right phrase for this process, but I just made sure that none of the reverse of the material was showing on the straps, because the idea is that they're going to tie it at the top so that I don't have to do any measuring of how long I need to do this strap for, and also so it's adjustable with the top. I hemmed them and I also ironed them so they were completely flat before I attached them to the top. I used the same process as you would attach a strap to a tote bag, because I already knew that, and you basically do a sort of box like this with your sewing machine. You sew, lift up the presser foot, and then pivot the material, and then sew, and then lift up the presser foot, and then obviously you put the presser foot down in between each turn. But you basically are making a do-do-do-do-do, 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 and then release, and then do-do-do-do-do. So you end up with a cross in a box, and it keeps them on nice and sturdy for when you're jiggling about. I really wanted to add a matching scrunchie to this co-ord, two-piece co-ord, to make it a three-piece co-ord. The actual piece of fabric that I had left over was a little bit too small for this, but I thought I would show you the process anyway, so that if you want to follow the actual tutorial, which I'll leave down below, please just make sure you have enough fabric to start with, and it's probably better to use a kind of satin as opposed to a stiff kind of curtain material, just as a heads up. Learn from my mistakes. With the last little bit of fabric that I've got, I'm going to make a scrunchie. So I've just pinned this along the length of this scrap of fabric inside out, and I've left a little gap here which is going to help me sort of turn it inside out later. So yes, I'm going to start sewing this now. Okay, so my sewing machine is being a little biatch, and for some reason, someone tell me down below why this is. I think it's something to do with the tension, but every time I sew, the thread comes out of the needle. And I'm just going to leave a little gap there, so I'm going to pull it out, rethread my machine. Just not playing ball this evening. Just trimmed off the hanging threads, and then I'm going to use a safety pin to turn the scrunchie inside out. My dressing gown, by the way, it's quite chilly today. So I think it's supposed to snow tonight actually. Okay, so I think we just put it like that. That was so difficult because this is such a thin piece of fabric. That was really difficult to turn inside out, but I've just kind of pressed it down, and then I've flipped that shorter side inside out again, just this outer bit where I left that gap. I'm going to tuck this end into here and match up the seam lines. This is quite hard to do without a tripod setup, but here we go. Next, I'm going to sew the ends together. So you don't want to just sew over this whole section. You want to just, I'm kind of like sewing all the way around this. I'm really bad at explaining this. I'll link the video down below that I'm following, and she explains it a lot better than I can, but this is the stage I'm at. That was really tricky. That was really quite difficult. Pray it looks okay. It's not the best, but this'll do. And then I'm gonna measure a piece of elastic around my wrist and leave an extra couple of inches. I don't know why that motion is making me laugh so much. There's got to be an easier way to do this. How the hell did she do this? Et voila. I think it looks pretty darn good from far away. I think it looks all right. It's pretty, I would say it has its faults, it has its quirks, little quirky bits that I just threw in there on purpose. The first of which being, you can kind of see the elastic on the booby area. If I was going to do elastic again this close to the hem, what I would do is try and do it in a fancy hidden way, so kind of like fold it over and sew along the elastic, if that makes any sense. So it's not so obvious, because all use black elastic, that would have been good, but I didn't have any of that. There's also a little bit of a puff where I took in the waistband, but I really like the elastic under the boob. I feel like gives quite a nice silhouette. If it was a nicer material that falls a bit nicely, I feel like it would, this kind of technique would be really good, because it would sit quite nicely. I think that this material in general is a little bit too stiff to fall nicely. Like if you look at the bows, I don't have the best. It's okay, it's all right. Could have gone worse. I'm so chuffed with the fact that my first sewing project was a semi-success. Many learning curves along the way, yes, but this is how we get better at things. And I will definitely wear the top and the skirt, maybe not together. I don't know if it's a little bit too much together, but I think the top with a pair of jeans looks really nice, or a pair of trousers. That is the end of my little sewing project. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know, because I truly enjoyed doing it, and I'm definitely gonna do more of these, whether you like them or not. I'm definitely gonna do some more, because I have some clothes that I have in my wardrobe that just need maybe a little bit of alteration, but I might jazz it up a bit and actually make a whole new piece out of old fabric. So if you want to see that, do let me know. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. Take care of yourself, wash your hands, wash your bum, and hopefully I will see you very soon. Bye.